Another little trick I have, though, that I loved and I got taught by someone else, and again, any information I give you, you're going to be able to pair that with any information you already have. You might know all of this. This might be a waste of time. That's not fine, but I can take it. But the whole point is, everywhere you go, every property you go to, you're going to learn a new trick and learn something else to do.
I might remember this conference for a very long time because this is the first time that I've overdressed for a venue. And I apologize for skewing the grading scale on that. I'm with AUS. We do student housing furniture. We've been in the industry since 1992, and so we design, build, install, take out, put in the dumpster, move people while they're occupied in the units in 95-degree weather. And so we have done well embracing the suck, as we like to say. And so if there's anyone here that doesn't like installing furniture in the summer in 95-degree weather and carrying stuff upstairs, we could be a good partner for you guys. And so Wes, we started working together maybe about a year ago, and I really bought in really quickly what we're doing and what he wanted to do and kind of his vision in the industry. And I tried to think of 3 words that really encompass what we're doing here. And I think care, collaborate, and compete are three things that we're doing here. And I think if we all care, obviously there's a foundation of care because we're in the service industry. We provide a service for students. And so if we care and collaborate and compete and we put our heads down, then all of a sudden all the boats are rising, and I think the end user is going to get a good product at the property level. And so those 3 words, it took me 10 seconds in meeting Lincoln to realize that he cared, he was collaborative, and he was competitive. And so I think he's a microcosm of what we're seeing, what we're trying to do here. Very exciting. It has embraced the suck. I mean, he is knee-deep in suck and turn, and he's like, I'm going to make this really good. And so that guy will always be very popular amongst a group like this and in the industry that has that pain point. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lincoln Ogata from Easy Turn.
Show of hands, who's done a turn here before? Who's done more than 3? 5? 10? All right. How many did it take till you guys realized you'd rather go on vacation for 14 days than do a turn? First one. All right, so we're in the same boat. I'm not going to throw in my accolades or background of it because there's going to be people here with more, but around 9 years, around 12,000 beds over my time. Again, any group you go into, there's some people who have done more, and that's okay. I'm not trying to compete with that. I'll give some of my background here. Sorry, I'm coughing up now. So I'm going to talk about everyone's favorite turn. Obviously, that's what we're here to talk about. That's what I'm here to talk about. Turn is, and I'm going to read this part off because I wrote it and I thought, how did I write that? My wife didn't believe me I wrote it, so I'm going to read it off. Turn is an unwanted whirlwind where chaos and fatigue meet high expectations, Newton's law, and possible unemployment that unseemingly still manages to creep up like Christmas every year. Is that not good? I had to read that. I want to memorize all that. Thank you. And my wife will hopefully see this and see that it was well received, or we're going to edit it to show such. So I'm going to do one of my first story, or I guess I'm going to my name. I'm Lincoln Ogata, obviously. I worked for several companies inadvertently. I've been on the receiving end where you're sitting in your office and you see people come up in suits. You see your property manager on the phone in her office with the door locked. And then you realize very quickly when you get a text to everyone that says meet in the office at 9 a.m. that you're going to have a new management company. I saw that twice. So even for the second one, when I saw it, I was ahead of everybody, and I thought, all right, guys, I know how this works. They're going to separate us. One's the good group, one's the bad group. But all are eligible to apply again. Although literally one time there was still a stack. I won't say what company that was, but the stack of the applications were still there after they were done with that portion. But somehow I made it through all those unscathed because, again, I'm on the facility side, so the property managers are usually, people don't usually change it when the facilities are super bad. I'm sorry, we get the upside of that. But if you can't somehow compete with unreasonable goals, then usually property managers are the ones. So I got the awkward text like, what are they telling you in there? And I'm trying not to look at my phone while they're in the other room. And I'm like, I don't know, this is crazy. I've never seen this before this year. But all this to give you guys the heads up. Now you're educated. If you're in there and you're newer to student housing and you get a random text from someone that doesn't normally text you and it's not the right time for lunch, and people are coming in your office, especially when they're carrying screwdrivers to change out the locks, which happened one time too, it's not a good look. All that to say, I worked for Campus Apartments, Campus Advantage, Graystar for a second. That's how I got to see so many transitions. And then I worked for some other smaller companies for different periods of time. But again, I say that to say that every company I go to, they have their own little booklet, and they're going to say, this is the way we do turn, this is the way we do. Everyone has it figured out. Everybody, except nobody, has turn figured out. And it's always written by someone who's been in their position, and they don't remember the last time they had to drink 6 Red Bulls in a day to get through it. So too far removed from turn. And again, this is the facility side. I did work some as a property manager, quickly stepped out of that role. That's not for the faint of heart. But we don't get to talk much facilities, guys. I feel like, we have a stigma. We're aware of that. But I came into it a little different. My background, I was in the Navy, did construction in the Navy, and when I got out of the Navy, I had pretty good background and realized I was about 20 years younger than everyone else in this field. When I got my first job, I went to my very first managers conference with Campus Apartments in Philadelphia, and they separated the room from facilities people and the property manager side, and literally someone kept trying to get me to go over to the property manager side, and I was like, no, I do toilets and lockouts. So we stayed over there and got to learn where all the stigma came from on some of them. But there were some good people there. It's just 2 different people. So I'll get into this part of it. Today I'm going to go over kind of the 4 relationships, if you will, that are essential to have for turn before turn starts. And if you guys don't know, you're supposed to start planning turn far in advance to turn. One thing that was consistent with almost any company I worked for was that you start around the January time frame to prepare for that. And I'm not saying I did that all the time. My goal was to get better so I could wait longer, which never really worked out perfectly for me. But they all want you to start in January, do all your initial stuff and work your way through it. But again, every system had different rules and things to follow in that sense. So I'm going to go into, I guess, my most recent job that I had too. I got to go from off-campus housing, and the last one was EDR with the UK stand-up. And if anyone knows much about that, it was an insane undertaking. It was, almost $1 billion worth of construction, 6,700 beds, 13 buildings, and it was exhausting. And yeah, but either way, EDR is now part of Graystar, so I would have been there. It all comes around. So anyways, we're going to get into the 4 things. So I'm going to use a lot of analogies on here because I love analogies and my wife hates them, so I'm going to use them because she's not here to tell me not to. So I'm going to get first into the relationship between your property manager and your maintenance manager. And I see this as kind of a Brady Bunch / arranged marriage, if you will. You have to get along, right? I mean, everybody knows this. I have great stories of, when I came on board with my very first student housing, everybody from the office staff just bashed the last facilities manager, which is kind of how I enter all my jobs when I go somewhere new. They're all just bashing the last guy who was there, which puts a lot of pressure on the new guy there to see how quickly they will turn on you. But that relationship is so important. If you're not having daily talks, at least on the phone, and I'll push to say weekly. Everyone's property is different size, laid out differently. But if you're not having at least weekly face-to-face with your property manager, with your facilities manager, it's really healthy to have that. Even if you can't stand, we got to find your common ground. The bottom line is, both of you all, even though I said something different before, both of you can lose your job if the property doesn't go well. You have to make that part work. And turn is obviously the most important time of the year. And I guess that's coming from my side, but I think everyone can agree it's a very important time of the year. Depending on your property, 14 to 21 days, you're going to have to turn every unit you have. It's not pretty. People never leave at the right time. You always have to go threaten people, and people are always so shocked and snuck up on the fact that they're supposed to be gone that day. And half of them think they renewed. It's It's not a fun first day while you're running around trying to trash out units. And as you can tell, it's true, I promise. So that's the first relationship. It really is. Getting together, going over expectations with your property manager and with your facilities manager. You have to be on the same page. When it comes to approving or something, if you're going around and thinking these rooms are good and she's coming back and telling the vendor without you knowing, go back in these rooms, it's not pretty. It doesn't show cohesiveness. And you know, like Brady Bunch, they can, you know, smell blood in the water if they realize that mom and dad aren't, you know, clicking or doing well. They're going to start picking on the other one, or they'll ask the parent, you know, ask mom, then ask dad, right? So they're going to go that route. So it's just really important to set the standard. Don't sit back and bash your facilities guy. Don't sit back. You know, you can do that with your peers, I guess, but you don't want to do that with your AGMs or your leasing staff. It doesn't work. It doesn't work well. Maybe you can get through it, but it won't be a pretty turn. Here's my next question I was going to ask before that, though. But how many people here have been with the same facilities manager in a work environment for the last 3 years? All right, that's maybe 3-4 hands there. It's not common. We have turnover, if you guys didn't know, in this field. Lots of turnover, and a point where you would have the same property manager and maintenance manager for multiple years is very rare. Someone's usually always coming or going in one sense or another. Like she mentioned earlier, they come, you know, sometimes I worked for a property manager that was 22. I was only 28 at the time, but still, the 25 and under range, I don't know another industry other than the military that will give so much responsibility to someone so young. So that's just, I learned that the more I get out into other fields. But it's a lot of pressure. Again, turn's not easy. So make sure you have that relationship up there. Your next one is going to be between your vendors and your staff. If you guys aren't having vendor meetings, or if you're only having one vendor meeting, I can say you're wrong, but it's different for everyone. You should at least have your vendors and who's going to be on site know some of your staff. This is good for security. It's good because you kind of want them to jump and snap into place when one of the people walk by to make sure everybody's working. It's just an important relationship. You don't want to have to do that the day of. But if you have a vendor meeting that you're going to go down and give everyone their schedules, if you can plan one before that and have it a casual setting, get some Jimmy John's or whatever sandwiches your area of the country prefers. Throw them on the table, have people come over, let them meet people. It's going to be much easier if you know a name when you want to yell at someone walking up a set of stairs instead of turning around and going back and trying to call them or something. So that's another one of the important things. And all these are just points to be able to look back and think, how is it at my property? How am I with my facilities manager? How well, you know, does my staff know the vendors? And I'm not saying to know all the vendors, but at least the bosses. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people on your site for a turn, but at least if they can recognize, and I don't know if you guys require different t-shirts for your vendors. A lot of people do. That's very beneficial. Again, that's a huge security plus side to have there. My next leg of this thing is going to be the maintenance team and the office staff. Again, like I said earlier, onto the stepchildren. You have to know each other. And I really worked a lot on that with my properties, was just to make sure that they could come in there, that we had some group meals, that they knew at least each other's name and what their role was. And the next level of all that is going to say, if you're a slower time and you're leased up and you're feeling good and you have a generic work order come in, let your office staff pair up with one of the guys going to do a maintenance job. Let them go in there with them. They can check up and see how they're doing inside the room. They can do that talking part, but also have them go back there and see how you change out a filter. Hey, all hands when it comes to turn, right? So if you can have them go in there and kind of understand the process, even some basic troubleshooting on some things, all this is going to make them a better staff for when they get work orders during the year. They're going to come in, they're going to understand, you know, sometimes they might want to do too much on there, but at least they can understand this is not a one-day fix. This is a 2-day fix. They probably have to thaw that unit out. Whatever it is, we'll get a new filter up there. You're going to cross-train, and it's only going to benefit you. It only makes your office staff not have to be note takers every time turn comes around. So cross-training is huge. Just let them do it, and again, that relationship will help out. Of course, from the military side, the camaraderie is so important. If they're all happy working together, and you're setting that example with with the two managers, it's going to make turn a lot easier. And then when it goes into you and your property, the management staff and the property, inspections are huge. Most places I've been to do quarterly inspections. Your last inspection is so important because, like our presenter was up here before me, you have to have time for long lead items. That always seems to be what sneaks up on people. And then all of a sudden you're robbing your model, or you're robbing that one unit that everyone has that they just take everything from. It all started with a broken fridge door, and now there's no cabinet doors, all the locks are ripped off, all the doors are ripped off, there's no trim on the walls. That's not pretty. And then you're going to have, and then somehow that ends up being like the sneak out place for the guy. It's not a good thing. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm very confident in that. So don't even start with one of those units, because it's all downhill from there, and all of a sudden it's $3,000 to get that unit back up and ready to rent, when in reality, long lead items are usually what kills that. If you can go grab it from Home Depot that day, it's not going to be a big deal, but if you're looking for that door, or you're looking for that cabinet door, it could be a long time. So make sure you know your property. Make sure you do your inspections. Make sure you do them thoroughly. So obviously with that last inspection, you're also going to see who you're going to have you should already have a pretty good carpet list by the time that last inspection happens. You should know whose carpets are not going to come clean at that point. So you can I used to put question marks for my carpet area on my final walk to say if it was, or I would put absolutely not, or a big X through the whole thing if it was going to be carpet. But you should know where your carpets are going to be. This should help you with your budgeting to know where you're going to be at. Your last inspection is so big. All your inspections are big. I guess you're supposed to say that. But your last inspection is huge. You really should know where you're at. You should be able to go ahead and order everything you need from HD Supply or any other company. Sorry, I didn't mean to isolate that one. But any other company, Buyers Access can help you work with them, I learned earlier, and get you a fair deal. A lot of competition out here. So that last inspection. Here's another little trick that I've learned. I have all kinds of little tricks I could give you. I wanted to get through those 4 legs of it that hold up your turntable. I was going to get some audio there, but I didn't do that. But anyways, these are your 4 legs that hold up your turntable. Another little trick I have, though, that I loved and I got taught by someone else. And again, any information I give you, you're going to be able to pair that with any information you already have. You might know all of this. This might be a waste of time. That's not fine, but I can take it. But the whole point is, everywhere you go, every property you go to, you're going to learn a new trick and learn something else to do. I learned this awesome trick, and that is to have a unit that you have down. Unless you're 100% year-round, then congratulations, you don't need to hear anything I'm saying. You're doing fantastic. But if you happen to have a unit that's down, or 3 or 4 units that's down, it's awesome to do a sample turn on that unit. You have your vendors come out. You have them go through one at a time. You have your maintenance going there. You have your painters going there. You have your cleaners going there, and your carpet cleaners going there. So this does a lot of things. First of all, the vendors actually like this. They can find out if they're new to turn, how long it's going to take them to do each room. They're going to understand your expectations. So try to be consistent with your expectation on that day. Then come turn time, they're going to love this information. They might not love doing it, but they're going to love the information they get from it. And then you're going to get to know, you and your property manager, the property manager, facilities manager are going to get to know what they want as a unit to see it. And of course your maintenance gets a little test run. So that one little thing is really, really important to see how it's going to go. And of course, carpet cleaners always say that they never get vacuumed well enough and they're pulling out hair, and they all kind of like to blame them. But if you put them all in one room, they don't argue as much or blame the other one as much. So I always say to try to do a test unit. You can do it a few weeks out. It's not hard at all to just have them come in, and I doubt they'd turn you down. Maybe they will. But also, with saying that, don't give them the worst unit you've ever seen. You don't want them to come back and try to up their prices or not show up on move-out day. So just give them a good middle of the run if you have options, and have them go through that. And that's a really good trick to have. Another thing that I use, and I brought up on the podcast when I spoke on there too about it, and it's kind of my little thing, but I do this little thing called blue taping doors. Once I've gone through and finally approved a unit, whether you have a keyhole or whether you have an access, a safe lock, whatever you have, take some painter's tape with you, put it across the door, and that means this room is ready for a resident to move in. Nobody touch it. The last thing you need is a clean unit where you see the steps that walked in, realized it was clean, and then walked back out of that unit. So a beautiful thing is, especially depending on how your building is laid out, and I had them at UK and Runs, but you could look all the way down and see blue tape across all of them. And that's an excellent feeling to have, to know the next person to go into that unit is going to be the resident, and that it's all the way done and approved. So again, you're going to come up with your own little systems that you have, and these are just some tricks that I have. Another thing too is finding out your parking. If you're new to a property, find out the best flow of traffic. I did a property that was off a very busy road, and we did not think about this. It was my first turn there, but it was not hers, and she says, oh, they just go out here and they do it, it's going to be fine. It was horrible. There were cars backed up in the street. We got warnings from police. It was bad. So make sure to kind of figure that out if you're new to your property. If you've been there for a while, you're not going to really need to hear that. So yeah, those are the 4 main points of it. Again, if anything I'm saying goes against what your management company tells you to do, don't do it. And if you are, I guess you can bring it up with your regionals, and if you're regionals to your VPs, however that needs to go. But definitely don't just get shocked by a turn every year. Don't just hop in there and make the same mistake you made the year before. Try to document your stuff best you can, just so you don't have the same issues. Because sometimes you'll realize, oh, that's why I told myself we were going to start on this building because of this issue. Whatever it might be, just make sure that you try to document that. And then I'm going to sign off with kind of how I got into my current job here. But all these points and lessons learned that I had on it is really what kind of drove me crazy and ultimately led me to working with where I work now, which is Easy Turn, because our goal was to go out and fix as many of the issues that we had, and we were sick of pieces of paper being handed out to vendors and not checking units that we were being charged for, or finding out after we already paid them that the unit was not done. So yeah, that's what actually led me to now. So now, of course, my company Easy Turn, we work to better increase communication, accountability, and efficiency, which are all big things you need during turn. But I want to thank Wes for having me. We've been bothering him and digging into his knowledge. Again, I think this is awesome. I think I'm the only one that gets as excited about turn, and that's okay. I'll take that role. But it's been great talking to Wes, another person passionate about it. I love his platform. I love the whole idea. I didn't know about it in my early year. I mean, he wasn't here, but there was no outlet for this. There was no place to go get this kind of information. And I very much so feel at home around people who I can make turn jokes about and Red Bull jokes about and running out of turn eating money jokes about. So, because those Chick-fil-A biscuits are really expensive in the morning. It'll kill your whole budget. That's a fact. And you can contact Monster or Red Bull, and they will bring you normally cases of that on the front end. And you can say you're going to give it to your residents, and if it never makes it there, it never makes it there. Or the 4-pack turned to a 1-pack, but you got through turn, and that's that. So I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate y'all listening to me. Thank you.